Hello. So now the focus is on team management. We can so team management is a part of project management. So probably I can divide project management into the part related with scheduling, divided into tasks, and then there's another part that probably is even more human oriented, that is related with the management of the team. So how do you organize people, how people organize themselves in order to be productive. So the main goal is, and this is particularly relevant because in the software industry, the quality of people is make a difference. And if the quality makes a difference, then the team is also relevant. So the way you organize the team, and this is so true that one of the most famous sentences in, in software engineering is by Fred Brooks, that says that adding manpower to a late project makes it later. Why? Because it's related with the way, so what is the impact of the organization of the team in the production? Why? For one reason. So the problem is that basically software is a knowledge activity. And being a knowledge activity means that you need to have a lot of communication. So people needs to communicate. So which means that when this guy starts working, basically, or while working, you don't know everything. You cannot just read from some place. You should do that. No, he thinks about what he's doing. Actually, he gets new ideas. He gets some doubts, and you need to ask. So we need to talk with other people. And the problem is that if you have more and more people, the number of communication channels increase, okay, by this. So if they increase, means that adding people to a project that actually is delayed becomes even more delayed. Why? Because now this guy is not just working and communicating with these guys, he needs to communicate with the new guy. And there are two reasons why it gets late. First, you have more communication channels. So you increase the number of communication channels. So this every element in the team needs to have a new communication channel with the new guy. And the second thing is that the quality of the communication is not that good because the new guy probably do not share the same culture. So we have two problems, is the number of channels and the quality of the communication in the communication channel. So basically, maybe we can just synthesize what is team management in terms of always discussing about number of channels or the way you organize the channels, the communication channels, and the quality of the channels. Okay? So that's what we have, communication versus work. And of course, in activities that are not knowledge-based, so what you have no knowledge workers, you can work and do not communicate. But when you have knowledge workers, what people call knowledge workers, you need to have a lot of communication. It's not just work. Actual communication is part of the work, okay? Because you need to share ideas, you need to discuss things, okay? So the two ways basically to address this is either you just reduce the communication channels or you improve the communication channels, okay? And improve the quality, okay? That's the two ways you have to do it. For instance, in agile teams, so what you do, you try to reduce the communication channels. Why? To have small teams, 4, 5, 7 people, okay? And then you try to improve the quality in these communication channels because there's actually a feedback relation here. If you have a few communication channels, the quality in the communication channels increases because actually it's easier to create a common understanding between the elements. So you create your own language. So if you have few communication channels, these people it's easier for a group of 5 to create their own language than for a group of 1,000 or 2,000, okay? So, and if you have your own language, then you improve the quality of the communication inside the channel. So that's the main idea. So what you can do basically just look at these channels. And usually in software they are bidirectional, because you can also consider that you have unidirectional channels. Your boss says, do that, okay, and you do it. And this works if, hey, if what your boss tells you is just, please carry this bag of stones from here to there, and you carry the bag. It's going to work, probably. You don't need to communicate. But probably doesn't work if it says, hey, you need to develop this functionality, okay, with this level of quality. Now you probably need to communicate more to understand what is necessary to do and to discuss ideas about what to do. That's the difference of a knowledge worker, okay? So it's really important to have the quality of the information channel. So, and to improve the quality in of the information that goes through the channel, you use a shared language. And then you'll find a lot of techniques that companies use, even to have a weekend together playing games is a way that you try to improve these channels and the communication in the channels, so that people really come together and start and share the same business goals, share the same interests. Okay, that's something that probably is really human oriented, but probably can make a difference when you develop software, when you have your team. Okay, examples of shared languages in software development. So you have the language of the developers. Okay, for instance, design patterns. People talk about design patterns. People talk about specific characteristics of the language. Language of the designers, of the architects, language of the clients. Sometimes it's really important that the team share the language of the client. Why? Because if the client says something, you understand. So if you share that language, you actually are able to understand. So there's no noise in the communication. You reduce the noise in the communication. Okay. Okay. So basically, is to share and understand. Share language is reduce the language, but is so you reduce the possible elements that go in the language, but actually the elements that go are really rich from the problem of from the perspective of the problem that you want to solve. Okay, and that's it. So understandability and versus expressive power or something. So less is more. And actually, if you think in software, best. So that's another way to see that actually software is about knowledge, is about language. Is that the best practice in software become language? Okay, so can be language in the sense that we say the pattern, an observer pattern or a strategy pattern, okay, or can be even in the sense that if some back practices become so nice that people agree, sometimes even the programming language. So it's there's different ways to look at it, but actually it's knowledge. So you put it in dictionary, right? If you write if you create a way to say something in Portuguese language, people start repeating it, okay, and using it. So it becomes best practice, becomes a language, okay? So common understanding actually enhances the communication, okay? So the second solution for this, so this is a solution usually that you are able to have in small teams, because of course you need to create a culture. It's difficult to create a culture it's more difficult for a big group, even because in a big group there are different interests. Sometimes it's easier to have and language is about also have the same perspectives on things, okay? And then I can tell you a little bit how to organize people around the same perspectives. So the other way is to have less communication channels, okay? And less communication channels is, how can we reduce the communication channels, is the organization of the team, okay? So cohesive groups with the high internal communication and low intergroup communication. So here is like the same way you define modules in code, you can define groups related with the modules. And the same way between modules you have interfaces that define the specific way that the modules talk, okay, communicate. You can also define, you have each group associated with each model, and you have these interfaces so they communicate only through the what one group provides to the other group. But you reduce the communication between them, and you have so you have a structure with the small groups, high communication inside the group, and lesser communication between the groups. Okay, and actually that's what happens, for instance, when you have the microservices architecture, where people are around, you divide your product into small products, and each product has a group that is able to deal with everything. So it's a cross-functional team that is able to deal with everything about that functionality. And so they are fairly independent. Okay. Okay. So that's okay. And then when you have these groups, you can decide to do it by skills, and you can do it in a way that probably is not so nice. Is you put them by technical schools. You have the group of the programmers, and if you have the group of the programmers, actually you have a higher communication between them, and so they improve their skills in terms of programming because they share all these small things about how to program, how to use the programming language, but they are not focused on the product, okay? And then you can have by human skills, okay, communication, cooperation. So you can group them depending on its characteristics. For instance, people that do requirements engineering probably need to have more ability to communicate, for instance. Okay. So how do the skills fit into the organization? Basically, you can have different of these skills into the organization. So as I told you, requirements engineering for people that are good about communicating with the client or understanding the problem from the point of view of the client. And probably this is a more traditional way to divide the group people. So they put them in these two, in these functional groups that they have the same function. Okay. The problem with this is that probably they are not focused on the product, as I told you. Okay. So strategies to create groups. So there are focus on focus on the business, okay, not on the function, okay. And by focus on the business is that you put them together, like in the microservices. So in Amazon, you have the business team that basically deals with the rating of books. Probably one, two, not one, but 3 or 4 guys that just deal with the rating part. And they are fairly independent of the others, so they can decide about all the business things associated with this functionality in Amazon. Okay, so they are really independent, and they really understand the business. They really understand what the clients need, which actually probably in this case is an internal client, Amazon internal client, but. That's so you maximize this perspective of being business oriented, being agile from the point of view of doing providing quality to the business, adding value to the business. Okay, and then focus on the technology, and that's the other perspective, that you have the developers together. So, and you can see advantages and disadvantages of this. Although today, that's the most of the teams are organized this way. That was a very layered. So this is more like I would say you just divide your team, you regroup your team in terms of layers of software. Okay, so each layer, the database guys here, the business logic guys, the web designers, and then but then they are not focused on the product. What really they are interested is well, how can we implement this the best way with the most fancy technology? But probably they do not really care whether they are adding value to the business, okay? Or they are improving the quality of the product. That's why things move a bit to be focused on the business, okay? So what is the organization structure? And then we will have flat. Of course, you have combinations of this. Flat versus hierarchical. And you can have flat when you have few people. So by flat means that everybody communicates with everybody. And we have hierarchical means that probably you have one guy and this guy communicates with the sub-team. Probably even the sub-team, they do not communicate that much. And this is, but these guys usually become a point of contention, a point of failure. And these guys are the guys that these bosses are the guys that work a lot, do not sleep, but actually they are just always under pressure, and actually they are the point that people do not work that much because they are the contention point of everything. Okay, but of course sometimes you need this kind of structure. Okay. And sometimes there's a mix of this. So what actually people try to do, we have a small flat teams focused on the business. And then you have not probably a hierarchy, but you have a net of communication related with how your small product requires services from other products inside the organization. Okay, and that's it for an introduction for team management. Okay, bye.